Men of Reddit, what uncommon red flags in men should women be on the lookout for? When I worked at KFC, there was a girl whose boyfriend would stay parked outside the door during her entire shift. That is not something I've seen commonly, and it's a huge red flag. Someone who can't accept your accomplishments. Don't be with someone who feels the need to compete with you or can't accept that you've accomplished your goals. My wife is a doctor. I'm an idiot. I asked her what made her want to marry me. She said, "You took time to praise my accomplishments and made me feel important all while struggling yourself. I'm really having to work on this at the moment. My 6-month partner is killing it at work and 3 years younger than me while I'm still figuring things out. It's hard sometimes to be completely happy for her because I feel so lost," which I acknowledge is completely coming from a place of insecurity. Working on it though, and good advice to make her feel important. Temper and inability to control it. And for people that are saying that temper is not uncommon, I'd say that's largely true. Everyone gets angry sometimes. The distinction is in the inability to control it. I found out a few years in that my partner was unable to control their temper, and by then I have a ring and a house. In hindsight, the inability to control one's temper is a good thing to look out for and know before committing, as it can be a lifelong issue to deal with. I've not known many people that can't keep it together enough to not punch holes in drywall or warten it. So I generally lean on the side of most functional people can control their tempers appropriately. If you have to defend him with a phrase like "oh, but when he's just with me, it's different," or "but you don't see him when he is nice. Who he is when he's at his worst is still the guy you're dating, and if all your friends see or hear about is the worst, it's not something they aren't seeing. It's something you aren't recognizing." Lying for your approval. Had a couple sit down at my restaurant and the guy kept loudly insisting that he would give extra tips while in front of his date. He said it again when he went up to the cashier to pay via Apple Pay, forgot to sign the receipt until we told him to. Guy proceeded to rush out the restaurant with his date yelling back about how much tip he so generously gave. For an almost $60 dinner, the guy gave $2 in tip. I feel bad for his date. Absolutely lying for approval. Especially small lies. Not quite the same, but in a similar vein. My ex would say he didn't hear my message because he was busy reading. We connected over reading, so he knew that I liked that about him. In reality he was watching anime or gaming, and that's why he was ignoring my message. The thing is, I have never had a problem with either of those things. I don't understand why he'd lie about it. When the truth slipped out, I wasn't mad, just sad and confused why he lied about something so small and insignificant. I wouldn't call it a red flag per se, but it's a thing I'm noticing more and more. 100%. If you are feeling unwanted and unloved and are thinking about breaking up, and then you try to bring it up and all of a sudden he starts being everything you wanted, to only go back to being distant and cold, you have yourself a love bomber. It's awful. The amount of people who fall for this is sad. Cause some people just get caught in this vicious cycle not knowing it's even happening. If he is mean towards your pet, don't stay silent. Your pet needs your protection. One of my friend's boyfriend was quite mean towards her bird. I don't know how she tolerated him. I would never let anyone mistreat my pet. Making fun of others on the first date. Harmless pokes at others are okay, but only if they are unaware of the jokes. If he is not discreet, it possibly shows his disrespect for others. However, please note that not one man is the same. A red flag for one can just be sign of nerves for another. What I call alpha intellectuals, those that have to constantly show how intelligent they are, how they are the most knowledgeable on a subject, and they always have to be right. It's like their identity depends on people recognizing they are smart. Well, I hope it's uncommon, but if he can't handle a conversation about your period, or can't go buy you pads or tampons, he is ignorant of basic biology and not a fully functioning adult male. Not saying it's a deal breaker, maybe you can educate him, but if not, big red flag for a serious long-term relationship or marriage. I've never understood issues buying those items. Are guys afraid the clerk is going to see and think they are having a period and holding purses for people? My grandma tries not to ask me to because she's afraid it'll embarrass me. I just don't get it, lol. Poor communication. Not telling you when something serious bothers him It's normal to be shy and worried about voicing concerns, but if he's actively denying that something's wrong when it is, that would just cause more issues and general confusion. In a relationship, you should encourage one another to be open about the way you feel. Someone who purposely doesn't disclose important information with you doesn't have your best interest at heart. I was doing this, not because I was trying to be manipulative or anything, but because I seriously didn't know how to have a constructive argument with my sig. My parents never fought, and all my previous relationships have been so juvenile that I never cared to take them seriously enough to actually give a shit about the issues in contention. So I would just clam up, walk away, take a nap, and then come back, and I would have my side of the problem resolved through cognitive dissonance. But I would never address a side of the problem. She dragged me out of my shell, kicking and screaming, and our relationship has only strengthened. Look, I don't want to get into a whole political thing, but honestly, outspoken male feminist, every single one of them I've ever personally known, and I do mean every single one, was an absolute scumbag to women. I'm a recovering domestic abuser. Look out for someone who acts very jovial in front of his friends, but acts aloof and stern with you in private. Disregard the moments that are good. Ignore the laughter and the cuddles. Instead, pay attention to the little glimpses of anger or controlling behavior. That is most likely his true behavior. Of course, this doesn't apply to every man, but in most cases this is true. Consider if all his former GFs have him blocked on social media. That may be a red flag of how he behaved in those relationships. If you have any questions, feel free. If you wanna bash me for my past, feel just as free. Watch where he wants to spend most of his time. All men want time with the guys. All men have needs to get out and have fun. Even introverts still want to hit Dave and Buster's or a bookshop from time to time. However, if he seems capable of making time for everyone but you, it is a huge red flag. The only exception to this rule is if he is working all the time and needs to spend what little time he has home to unwind. If this time isn't going to other people, then don't count it. Guilds, chat rooms, and online people are people. I don't care what the boomers say. It's hard to see, because he will literally create this persona, exclusively hide it from you. But those soft boys, super emotional and sad, and let's watch The Notebook in front of a girl, but then he's a gross weirdo when he's around his friends and pretty much every other walk of life. Puts you down for your sense of values. I don't like inappropriate movies or shows with a ton of cussing. I'm a prude. I don't like when he gets drunk. I'm a killjoy and no fun. Get mad when he says something disrespectful about me or other women. There's that prude again. Tries to push you into dressing / looking in ways you're not comfortable with. I'm pretty big chested and hate shirts that are really clingy since they are usually too tight under the arms. But my ex seemed to want to show me off. He admitted this in an argument once to his friends, as though me being well endowed was some glowing endorsement for him. Honestly, it can be really hard to spot. I had two extremely good friends hook up with each other. I met them through different high schools, but for context, Ben and I went to high school together until I was in 10th grade. I then met Kayla when I moved to the other side of the state. After high school, Kayla and I both moved to Sydney and I reconnected with Ben. To be clear, Kayla and I both moved down, but not, like, together. We are just friends. Anyway, some years later, Kayla and Ben met each other, hit it off. I was very excited as I always thought Ben was a really top guy. 10 years later, they've split up. Turns out Ben really wasn't a top guy and was outright abusive. To make matters even worse, a different friend of mine told Kayla after the breakup that she had an incident with him once when they were alone in the car. She never told me. Doesn't know I know. Kayla told me in confidence because she was scared that myself and our group wouldn't believe her. It's interesting that Ben made himself extremely scarce after he and Kayla broke up. I'm guessing he knew she'd spill the beans about what he was like and that the rest of us would not approve. He's right, to be fair. If he was to turn up to any of our gatherings now, he'd likely get some facial reconstruction. But anyway, my point is, myself and my group of friends were all convinced Ben was an extremely good guy. We had absolutely no idea anything was up. Definitely an eye-opener.